60 days. No skipped nights. Every single morning I woke up having slept with my head pointed east. And by the end of it, I genuinely didn't recognize how my body felt compared to when I started. Now, before you click away thinking this is some wellness trend or sleep hack content, let me be clear about where this actually comes from. This is ancient. This is Hermetic. The instruction to align the body with the rising sun during sleep appears in texts attributed to Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, and cosmic order, and it's been echoed across mystery traditions for thousands of years. The idea isn't just about comfort or feng shui. It's about aligning the physical vessel with something much larger. Solar current, magnetic flow. The body as an antenna, not just a machine. I didn't go into this experiment as a believer. I went in as someone who wanted to know whether there was anything real underneath the symbolism. And what happened over those 60 days? The changes in sleep quality, in mental clarity, in what I can only describe as energetic tone, genuinely surprised me. This video is going to break down what Thoth's teachings actually say about directional sleep, what the science of geomagnetic alignment suggests, and what I personally experienced. Stay with me. Let's start with the source material, because most people who talk about sleeping east have never actually traced the idea back to where it originates. Thoth, in the Hermetic tradition, isn't just a deity, he's a principle. He represents the mind of the cosmos made legible, the idea that the universe operates according to intelligence, and that intelligence can be learned, aligned with, and embodied. The Hermetic texts, and particularly the fragments attributed to Thoth through the Egyptian priestly tradition, describe the human body as something that participates in cosmic cycles rather than merely existing within them. You're not separate from the sun's movement, you're a receiver of it. The instruction around eastward sleeping comes from this framework. East is the direction of solar rising, the point where light re-enters the world. In Egyptian cosmology, the East is the domain of renewal, of Khepri, the scarab god who represents the sun at dawn, the form of the divine that pushes new light over the horizon each morning. Before we continue, I want to show you something that could completely change how you see reality. Most people spend years collecting fragments of knowledge without ever finding the complete picture. That's exactly why we built the Reality Codex. It brings together the core principles behind manifestation, Hermetic philosophy, consciousness, and reality creation into one practical system. If you've enjoyed the teachings we've explored on this channel, you're going to love what's inside. You can find it through the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I'll give you a second to do that. To align your head toward that direction during sleep was understood as an act of intentional reception. You were pointing the crown of your skull, the seat of consciousness, of the higher faculties, toward the source of incoming solar force. This isn't metaphor operating in isolation. The Hermetic principle of correspondence, as above, so below, means that solar movement has a direct counterpart in the body's own energetic rhythms. The solar current that moves from east to west across the sky was believed to move through the human system in the same way. Sleeping aligned with it wasn't superstition, it was engineering. Now here's where it gets interesting. I'm Daniel, and this is Hermetic Talk. And when I first started researching this topic seriously, I pulled out every fragment I could find across the Hermetic corpus, the Kabbalions' commentary texts, and some of the more obscure Egyptian priestly manuals that have been translated in academic circles. What I found was that this directional sleeping instruction wasn't a standalone curiosity. It was embedded inside a much larger system of bodily orientation, specific postures for meditation, specific cardinal directions for ritual, specific alignments for different phases of practice. Direction wasn't decorative in the Hermetic world, it was functional. The texts also describe something they call the solar body, a subtle counterpart to the physical form that absorbs and processes light force in ways the physical eyes don't. During sleep, when ordinary sensory intake goes quiet, this solar body was believed to be especially active. Aligning it with the east during those hours wasn't just symbolic positioning. It was, according to the tradition, giving that subtle system a direct feed, an unobstructed channel to the incoming current. There's a reason mystery schools didn't publish their sleep instructions publicly, because if you strip out the context, it looks like superstition. Put it back inside the full Hermetic model of the body, as a multi-layered system operating at physical, etheric, and solar levels simultaneously, and the instruction starts making a different kind of sense. And that's before we even get to what modern research has quietly started uncovering about the Earth's magnetic field, the body's own electromagnetic sensitivity, and why direction during sleep might actually matter in ways that have nothing to do with ancient Egypt. Here's where the ancient and the empirical start having a very uncomfortable conversation. The Earth has a magnetic field. That's not contested. What is less commonly discussed outside of specialized research is that the human body is genuinely sensitive to it, not in a vague, fuzzy, metaphorical way, but in measurable, documented, physiological ways. Magnetite crystals have been identified in human brain tissue. The pineal gland, which Hermetic and esoteric traditions have long associated with the seat of inner perception, appears to be one of the more magnetically sensitive structures in the body. Birds use geomagnetic fields for navigation, some fish, certain insects. The idea that humans are the one species that somehow developed with zero sensitivity to the planet's magnetic field starts to look increasingly unlikely the more you look at the data. Now, the directional sleep research. There is a study, published and peer-reviewed, that examined the relationship between body orientation during sleep and autonomic nervous system function. Subjects sleeping with their heads pointing north showed measurably different heart rate variability compared to those sleeping in other directions. Heart rate variability, for those unfamiliar, is one of the cleanest markers of autonomic nervous system balance, essentially a measure of how well your body is managing stress versus recovery at a biological level. The north sleeping group showed more disruption. Other orientations, including east, showed comparatively better parasympathetic tone, rest, recovery, repair. I want to be careful here because I personally think this is one of the most underrated areas of biophysics research, the intersection of environmental electromagnetism and human physiology. It's not that the science is weak, it's that it sits in a strange no man's land between mainstream medicine, which largely ignores it, and fringe wellness culture, which overclaims it. The actual findings are more interesting than either camp suggests. What the research points toward is something like this. The body, during sleep, is running restoration and consolidation processes that are highly sensitive to environmental inputs. Light, temperature, sound, those are well documented. Electromagnetic orientation is less discussed, but the physiology is there. Melatonin production, which is light-sensitive and critical to sleep architecture, is also affected by electromagnetic fields. The pineal gland sits at the center of this intersection. It's both the melatonin production center and one of the most electromagnetically sensitive structures in the brain. When I spent 3 weeks cross-referencing Hermetic descriptions of the solar body with modern research on bioelectromagnetics, what kept surfacing was how often the ancient maps described processes that the modern data is now beginning to identify through completely different methodologies. The Hermetic tradition described the pineal as the seat of solar reception. Modern research identifies it as the most magnetically sensitive part of the brain. Those aren't the same claim, but they're not unrelated claims either. The eastward alignment specifically creates a head-toward source of solar magnetic input orientation during the hours when the Earth's own electromagnetic field is in its quietest, most coherent state, the pre-dawn window. If the body is indeed running a kind of electromagnetic calibration during sleep, then where you're pointing your most sensitive neural tissue during that window is not a trivial variable. This isn't proof that Thoth was right, but it's the kind of convergence that makes dismissal feel intellectually lazy. All right, so what actually happened? I started this on a Tuesday in late autumn. I didn't change anything else. Same sleep schedule, same diet, same routines. The only variable was rotating my sleeping position so my head pointed east. I tracked it. Wrote notes most mornings. What I'm about to share isn't clinical data. It's personal record. But 60 days of consistent personal record across a single variable change is not nothing. The first 2 weeks, almost nothing noticeable. Slightly different dream texture, more vivid in a way that's hard to quantify, but I'd been tracking dreams for years at that point, so the shift stood out. Sleep onset felt marginally faster, nothing dramatic. I remember wondering whether I'd committed to 60 days of nothing. Week 3 was when things started to shift. I started waking up before my alarm, not occasionally, but consistently, and not groggy. This was the thing that started getting my attention, because I've been someone who struggles with that transition from sleep to full alertness for most of my adult life. Suddenly, I was waking up and feeling like the waking state was already accessible before my eyes opened. Like something had already been running the process before the alarm gave it permission. By week 4, I noticed something in meditation. I've had a practice for years, and there are periods where it flows and periods where it feels like pushing water uphill. During this stretch, consistently, it was flowing. The stillness that usually takes 15 minutes to reach was arriving in 5 or 6. I mentioned this in my video on Hermetic meditation practices, and a number of you responded saying you'd experienced something similar when experimenting with directional orientation during practice. One comment in particular stood out. A viewer wrote, "I started facing east for morning meditation 2 months ago, and the difference in how quickly I drop into stillness is startling. I don't have an explanation, I just know it's real." That landed. Because that was exactly the word I'd have used. Startling. Weeks 5 and 6, the changes started feeling physical in ways that went beyond sleep quality. A kind of background hum that I can only describe as vitality, not energy in the jittery, caffeinated sense, but something more like a baseline tone being higher. A friend who hadn't seen me in a month asked if I'd changed something about how I was eating. I hadn't. The only variable was still the same. By day 60, I ran a deliberate comparison. I slept with my head pointing north, the direction associated in both Hermetic tradition and in the cardiovascular research with the most disrupted outcomes, for 5 nights. The contrast was immediate and unambiguous. Sleep fragmentation returned. Morning grogginess came back. The meditation quality dropped. I wasn't expecting the comparison to be that clean. It was. Now, what does that mean? I'm not going to claim I've proven anything. One person, 60 days, no control group, no instruments. What I will say is this. The subjective experience was consistent enough, and the reversal clear enough that I can no longer frame the directional variable as irrelevant to how my body functions during sleep. The Hermetic model says the body is an antenna. Point it correctly, and it receives better. Point it incorrectly, and there's interference. I went into this experiment skeptical of that framing. I came out of it thinking the framing is, at minimum, pointing at something real, even if the full explanation involves biophysics rather than gods. Thoth didn't give that instruction because he wanted rituals. He gave it because the system he was describing is a functional one. The body responds to its orientation within larger fields. Sleep is the window when that responsiveness is highest. 60 days of pointing east didn't transform me, but it did something, and the something was consistent enough that I haven't pointed my head any other direction since. If you want to go deeper on the Hermetic model of the body as a receiver, the full framework Thoth outlines for working with solar current, the pineal, and directional practice, that's exactly what we cover in the Hermetic Talk channel. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next piece of this. The next video in this series is going to get into what the texts say about morning orientation rituals, what you're supposed to do in the first 20 minutes after waking to complete the cycle that the eastward sleep begins. That one is going to change how you think about your mornings.